welcome back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to continue building that nesting village. So I kind of alluded in the last episode that I wanted to build some portable terrain for AdeptiCon. And we had gotten as far as building all the bases for our houses for the village. And in this episode, we're going to continue with the roofs, which actually were equally as complicated as building the bases. So just to make sure everything was just right to fit together, it was a little tricky. But let's take a look at the finished product. So here's the finished house all nested into each other. I did add a little bit of light effects you can see on here, mainly because this is a hollow roof and there's no second floor, so you can't have miniatures up there and playing. I'll just show you in a minute here. See, it's just, so I just wanted to add a little interest to that. So I added a little light to the top there. Now this is our next roof. And we go on to our next one. And in here, we got our stone shed at the end. And I just wanted to pull that out for a sec and show you, you can put all your scatter bits in there. So I didn't fill it up. I could probably put a lot more in there. But what I wanted to do is have the entire village self-contained. So I got a well in there that would be the center of the village. You get all your little scatter bits and barrels and crates and whatever else you'd have in your little town. And then you can put it all together, and all you do is whip this one house out, and you could play a casual game of Blood and Plunder or Blood and Valor or whatever you're wanting to do. Dungeons and Dragons, you want to use this for the tabletop for a Dungeons and Dragons match, or it's just comes in handy for all sorts of different things. And it's easy to stow away. And I made this a good size. Like originally in the first episode I showed you, I fit it in my carry-on luggage, but this actually will fit in my personal bag, which is even better. Then I just grabbed this little house, and I got room for maybe some other terrain I can bring. So I'm really looking forward to heading to AdeptiCon and using this piece of terrain there. All right, if you guys like what we're doing here in the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I start these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table and let's start painting and let's start crafting. Okay, so we're going to start off with some dollar store foam board. As you can see, I notched the one end of it. And really, I just measured the opening here. And I notched it so it sits flat on those two posts that we put in the original episode. And it sits nice and flat. Now, I left the other end not notched because we're going to notch the other side twice. So it sits flat on there. I'll show you here in a sec here. You can see that it's flat there, and you can see that I've notched both sides here. So now it has a nice flat surface for you to glue it to, and you get a nice peak on your roof. So you want to make sure you don't fill it all the way over to the edges because you want room for your shingles, right? We have to have a little bit of space for our shingles to overlap. So I'm just showing you I'm doing it on all four roofs the same way for all of them. So you get kind of a consistency amongst all four. So how I adhere these together is with this white tacky glue. Just kind of show you that's how I glued it together. You could do the hot glue, but I in this case I could get away with the white tacky glue. I like the stronger bond that it gives. So this is after I've completed all the roofs. And you can see they're within the space. And they're really just sitting on those posts that I put inside on that first episode. So now I moved on to measuring some of the doorways here. I did decide to have closed doors on this. I just wanted to add a little more decorative things to the outside of the building. And so I got this clearance jewelry I got from Michael's. And I'm going to cut them out for hinges, and then those little bolts are going to use for door knobs on all these doors. I definitely recommend checking out the clearance section at Michael's. You never know what you're going to find in those buckets. All right, so to make the door itself, I use this skinny balsa wood. I use my little hobby knife here and put some texture into them. I'll show you a little piece here so you can see. And that way it just looks like it's got some wood grains. These pieces are usually smooth. Now, I get most of my balsa wood, just so you guys know, from Amazon. They sell all sorts of different sizes that you can get. I used to get it at Michael's, but they stopped carrying it, unfortunately. So then I moved on to clipping up the jewelry, and I just kind of mangled that piece up to make my hinges. And really, I'm just kind of floating on different types of styles here. So this has got more of a fantasy look or even a steampunkish look that it could be used for other games. Again, this terrain I want to be very versatile and be able to use for many games. So I didn't, I kind of just play with a few different, designs and details. All right, so we're going to add some texture to the inside of the roofs. I kind of want it to look like something when you take the rooftop off, so I'm going to make it kind of look like it has a stucco roof. So we're just going to take our tinfoil ball there and texturalize the inside of all the roofs. So this is after I've completed all the doors. They're all fabricated, ready to rock. We got all our roofs that are texturalized on the inside. Now we got to go to our black coat. So I want to get these all covered before I add shingles. And of course, I'm going to paint all those doorways separately before we glue them in. All right, so now we're going to move on to shingles. So there's 4 different houses, and I decided to do 3 different types of shingles, mainly for size purposes. So the first one we're going to do is foam shingles. So this will be for the outside. So we can be a little more decorative on the outside because we have more room to play with. That's a brush I got from Home Depot for cleaning up paint on the corners, and I used my Ofa knife to cut it up nice and thin. You can see these are texturalized, and then I cut them in half to give my shingle size, and then I cut them in little chunks like that, and then I notch the edges, and that's how I make my shingles for foam. All right, so now our shingles are all cut out. Now that took some time. I would say that took a couple hours to do that. If you had a Proxxon cutter, you probably could do it faster. I just did it with a box cutter. And then I want to add these window details to the top of the roof. So this is the outer shell. So we can have a little more liberties on our designs here. We can go with a few extra details on the outside. So I cut these little pieces out. I'm going to use that tinfoil ball again to texturize it because we want to have that stucco look to it as well because it technically is a wall. And then we're going to use some white tacky glue and glue these together first before I hot glue them to the roof. Now you have to notch the sides so that you can put a little roof on it, and you want it to lie flush with the roof, so you have to also notch the bottom of it. So I just used my Ofa knife here and just trimmed it up. Just be careful when you're doing it, not to cut your finger. And then I want to add the window detail on here. So because this roof is hollow, I can't really put a hole in it. There is no upper floor, so I'm just going to put the, go through the motions, let's say, of putting the framing on the window. But I plan on painting some light effects in the windows, so we'll take care of the details there to make it look as a little more life to it than just a blank window. So then I'm going to hot glue those to the roof because I want them to adhere quickly. So I just hot glued them to the roof. And now we have to make a top for the roof. So we got some cardstock. I got my lovely Twinkie box there. And we're just going to cut this kind of odd shape here. And you just have to measure it out with a ruler. I kind of played around with it a little bit. You want to decide how much your overhang is going to be. And really that's a personal choice depending on how you want it to look. And then, of course, do it for both sides. Now, the key note here is make sure you have the cardboard part facing out, not the shiny part of the box on cardstock. It's a little harder to paint and glue things to, so just make sure you have the paper side sticking out. So now we're going to add my shingles. So now I'm going to go a little past the actual, so it's hanging over the roof, opposed to just sitting on top of the roof. And that'll also help support it, is on those shingles on the edge. So this is after I've done one side of it. Looks kind of like mayhem right now, but it does look better once I frame it out a little bit more. So I've added all the shingles on here, and I decided to use some balsa wood. Similar to when I did the other structure for the Caribbean style one. I did the same thing. So you just frame the top, and it also doubles as a handle, right? So you can pull the roof up afterwards. And I plan on doing the details at the top of the peak of the window as well. So this is after I added those details. And then I also added popsicle sticks to the outsides. Those actually were coffee stir sticks. Sorry, they were coffee stir sticks on these outer edges, just to kind of finish it off. You don't like want to see the shingles from the side. They don't look they look like foam. So you want to cover that detail up with. I just added some of these coffee stir sticks. So now we're going to move on to the second style of shingles. So this is a cardstock version. That's just a Rice Krispie box. I measured the lines on there using my table and just drew them in. Then cut them out into strips, as you can see here. And then I notched them all the way through. And then I went back and I cut every second, third shingle randomly. And then cut them into little bits. That way you get more of a randomized look. I used to keep them in full strips, but then it looked too uniformed. It didn't look right. So I decided to move to this method, and I like this better. Some people actually cut them in individually, and you could, and then you can kind of just move them in all different directions, but it's really up to you. So now I'm going to glue them on. You can see I'm going to glue them right to the edge, and that way it'll support the roof. And that's kind of why in that first step, I said to make sure you measure the roof within the walls and not in the outer walls, so we can have that little bit of overhang with our shingles. So this is after I've put the one side on and I've added that small little piece of balsa wood to the top, and mainly it just gives you a nice little handle to grab. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the second largest building. So the two middle buildings, I decided to use this cardstock method for my shingles, mainly because it's the flattest. And as I mentioned in the first episode, it was a little tight in there. So I wanted to make sure I didn't waste up too much space with the size of the shingles. So I went with this cardstock method. So I'm just going to kind of show you. I'm just going to show you how it looks when it's completed. And I'm just going to measure it by putting it in here and making sure everything fits nicely. So that was the one that was a little snug. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't use up all the space with those shingles. So you can see it fits on nice, perfect, and I'm happy with that. So now we're going to move to the third style of shingle. That's really a tongue, what do they call it, tongue depressor that your doctor might use. And really I just snapped them. So I measured it, cut the one end so it fits to the edge of the roof, and then I kind of just snapped them. So it gives you kind of a thatched roof, because I really wanted to put a thatched roof on here originally, but I knew there wasn't going to be enough room to do that. A thatched roof would be too puffy. There wouldn't be enough space. So I decided to go with this method instead. So it works out good. Same as the other roofs, I kind of overlapped it a little bit. I added a little bit more details to the edges with some popsicle sticks just to kind of finish it off. Okay, so here's our 4 completed roofs, and we are ready for paint. So we're going to go with our multi-surface black craft paint and cover these entire pieces. So we're going to rapidly go through the painting process. This is more of a crafting tutorial, but I just wanted to show you the color scheme that I used. Real brown. If you guys have watched this channel, you're familiar with my undertones. We're just going to cover everything in this real brown. Then we're going to move to bark brown. Same thing. We're going to cover all the pieces up here. And we're just really laying the foundations for our undertones for these roofs. So then I move to the Pablo, another color that I usually use on the undertones, just to give that warmer feel to it by adding that Pablo to the whole thing. Gives it nice highlights and gives some warmth underneath the colors that you're going to put on top. That's really why I like to put all these colors. It's like those earth tones, and it really adds a lot to the overall finished piece. So this is after I've added all the Pablo. It's all completed. You can see I'm starting to add weathering in some areas of the doors, making it a little more weathered in the center. I've added some to the shingles, and I just kind of put a little bit everywhere. Spread the joy. Those base bottom parts there, the stucco roofs, add a little bit of weathering in there, and just kind of overall added that to there. So now we're going to move to camel, and I'm not just going to do the stone with the camel. I'm going to kind of do everything. I'm going to add that camel to a lot of the pieces here. So now we're really lightening it up. You can see I've added to a lot of the pieces here just to give it a nice weathered wood look. Added it to the stucco underneath. So we got nice looking roof. Definitely on these foam shingles, you definitely can add a lot more definition to them. So now we're going to move on to the real brown and our yellow ochre mixture. We're going to kind of add this to some of the shingles. I decided to do the foam shingles with some of that. And some of the other shingles I added a little bit more. To the doors I definitely did. And just gave a little bit of spruce up to everything here with a little bit of brightness of the yellow ochre. So now we're going to move to some miniature paints. So we got skeleton bone that I plan on highlighting that further. For the woodwork, we're going to use dark stone, necromancer cloak, hardened leather, dark wood. We got some Morfang brown and some ash gray. So these are familiar colors to the woodwork I've done in previous episodes. And definitely I would go back to referring to how to paint weathered buildings if you want more detailed, in-depth look at how I paint things. So then I decided to do a green roof on one of them. So I got some goblin green, some army green, and some commando green. I'm going to use those colors to kind of give myself a green roof. I just wanted to give some variety to it, right? So they're all kind of different. So we got one that I'm going to do a little bit more of the woodwork. As you can see, I've done all those, added those colors on there. This one's going to stay more to the yellow ochre kind of look to it. And I see I added the army green into the walls too, so it matches the base of the building. This is after I've added those greens to the roof here. And here's some moon dust, dynamic yellow, and lava orange that I plan on doing the light effects in the roof here and in the window. Then I'm also going to add some gunmetal and rust details to the metal that's on the doors here. And of course, before I add the rust details, I'm going to add Agrax Earth Shader, some Skeleton Horde contrast paint. And I'm really going to add those two to virtually everything, just in some strategic spots, as I usually do. All right, so that's pretty much all painted up. So let's build a village. So we're going to take it all apart here and do one pass through everything. I've added some scatter bits to the center too here, so I can actually build the entire village. So I'm going to pretend that I'm doing a pickup game here. And I'm just going to set up a quick game of Blood Plunder. And we're just going to set our little village up here. So that was fairly easy to get everything apart, which I'm really happy about. Everything fit nicely together. And we're just going to make our outer... I'm kind of making... That's why I wanted to do the 4 buildings. You get the 4 corners of the town. So you can have kind of a center of town, which we're going to do with our little scatter bits here. I got barrels in here. I got all sorts of stuff I shoved in there. I got crates in there. I got a well. And I got little food barrels and all sorts of stuff. And again, I could have put more in there, actually. I just picked some assorted things and just shoved it in there. All right, so let's just randomly place some bits of terrain here. And this would be good for like a 3x3 table. If you just wanted a small little table, you're playing a small 100-point, 150-point match, Blood and Plunder, this would be perfect. Of course, you could add this town and add it to other terrain that you have and make it a much larger game. All right, so let's grab a few minis. We got some English, we got some pirates, we got some French. And, you know, this would really be a small 50-point match probably here. There's not a whole lot of points here, but I'm just demonstrating how you could rapidly set up a quick game. And that's kind of how I wanted to, so I could just have a pickup game while I'm at AdeptiCon, right? Just something you can roll out. I think I'm going to take that small map from Raise the Black, it's a little fold-out paper one, which will fit nicely for this small amount of terrain. And I could just whip that out and play a quick game of Blood and Plunder. Bring a couple of forces so people can play with them. And, you know, do a little bit of demonstration of Blood and Plunder, which would be a lot of fun there. All right, that's pretty much a wrap on this project. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.